Now, over these couple of days here at this fabulous campus, we're going to be talking about collaboration, among other things, obviously, but largely about collaboration. We're going to talk, we're going to learn, and we all know what it is, right? I say collaboration to you, and you're like, yeah, I know what that is. But we still each are bringing our own contexts to the idea of collaboration. My own contexts for me and the biases I'm bringing to this particular talk are industry. I do a lot of corporate strategy. Open source, obviously. I specialize in strategy around open source, but also technology and nonprofits. I do a great deal of work with open source nonprofits. For instance, right now I'm an advisor for the Open Robotics Foundation, who are some of the nicest people I've worked with. So yay, go Open Robotics team. So that's just to say I don't have a strong backing in academia, and when I was in academia, I was mostly in libraries and humanities. But I have a really strong science bias. So that's going to come through in this talk as well. So apologies in advance to all the digital humanitarian folks out there. I love you, but you might not feel included. I see you. This is for you as well. So this is what I'm going to be talking about today. Voila! Collaboration, industry, and academy. What the heck is the deal with this? It does happen. Right? This isn't something that's unheard of. We've heard some mentions of it already this morning. I've done it myself in my past job in particular. I did rather a lot of work with getting industry and academia together. But it doesn't seem to happen nearly as often as I personally, with my incredible biases, think it should. I think it should be happening a whole lot, but it's not. Now, as I was working on this, I would talk to researchers, and man, if you want to see somebody light up like a Christmas tree, ask a researcher about their research. They want to talk about it, and they are so excited that you actually want to listen. You're not just saying it to be polite. And furthermore, you want your company to help them. And you're trying to see, is there a fit here? Can we do something together? So as I was doing this, it became more and more obvious, which it should have been from the start, let's be honest, that it wasn't really easy. It's not just like walking up and saying, hey, team, let's get together, yay, all right. It's not that easy. And the large stumbling block is that industry and academia, they don't really see eye to eye on this whole why I am here doing the things that I'm doing, meaning of life sort of stuff. They are coming from completely different perspectives, have different purposes, their own context, their own constraints, just, off in their own little worlds. And that's great, but it makes collaboration a little bit harder. So for instance, when you get right down to it, yes, there are those B Corps and public benefits that Heather was talking about earlier, but in general, companies are there to make money. And if you're not there to make money, you don't need a company. And so, poof, you can remove that complication and just do the stuff you like without having to worry about the money making. And it's not just money making. Anyone can make money. You have to make money right, and you have to make enough money, which means you have to make a profit. And that's a lot harder. But this is where customers are, or where industry is spending its time. Academia, on the other hand, all y'all researchers out there, you are uncovering the mysteries of life, the universe, and everything. And along the way, you're discovering some new mysteries, which is really great because that means the researchers coming up will have something new to work on. Furthermore, as you're uncovering these answers to the mysteries, you're publishing it in ways that other people can learn from it and build upon it. And then, thanks to these relatively newfangled inventions of open publishing and preprint servers, even more people, as many people as possible, can get access to the answers that they are looking for. Now, I'm not going to be idealistic here. Yes, researchers like money, because a great bibliography of published papers does not pay the mortgage, am I right? It just doesn't. If it does, I would be doing even more writing than I do now. But profit is not the primary motivator for researchers, as you all know. Now, as I mentioned, these collaborations do happen, but not as frequently as I think they should. Now, I say that because in my experience, working with a number of companies and trying to set up relationships with these folks, companies don't really think about academics when they have these problems. And I see a lot of potential where it would make a great deal of sense if they did think about them. Some of the potential applications here are that the companies can take the stuff you're coming up with and they can put it out in the market and help more people. They scale your work in a way that you cannot. And that's fantastic, and it's incredibly validating to everyone involved, but especially the researcher. Knowing that your work is helping people is great. It also ensures that the work that you do doesn't get stuffed on some, shelf somewhere in a library in a dusty journal. Go to microfiche. Do microfiche anymore? It can be out there helping people, and isn't that really the point? And, again, let's be real, industry brings funding. You're probably used to fishing for grants, but industry has money too. Sometimes they can give that money to you via not-for-profit trade associations, but they also can give it to you by licensing your patents, which I'm sure the UC IP offices would be very happy if they did. So there are benefits, really high-level benefits. These specific ones vary by company, vary by researcher. But some of the high-level benefits are obvious. But it's tricky. It is so much easier said than done. It's hard to do collaboration, even within a group that all know each other already, that are coming from the same context and understanding. My God, it is difficult to get people to do that. And if they're from different worlds, like industry and academia, it's not impossible, but it is incredibly difficult. For one thing, we don't mix too often, industry and academia. I don't see many academics at my industry events. Academics probably don't see a lot of industry people at their events. There are some. There's always exceptions to the rule. For instance, if you go to PyCon, you're going to find a lot of researchers. But in general, not a lot. This event is fantastic because we do have a mix. Not a huge mix, but we do have a mix. And we're all on the same footing, which is great. But usually we don't run in the same circles. We're all dealing with our own challenges. We've got our own work to do. And that's great. That's what we are here to do. But we don't even really speak the same language. When I'm talking to CEOs and CFOs and CSOs and alphabet soup like that, there is further alphabet soup, like OKRs and P&L and all that sort of crap that most people don't want to know about. It's a completely different language, that jargon. But academia does it too. Most business people have no clue what tenure is or why it matters, right? They just have no idea. They don't know about trying to get lab time. They have no idea how hard it is to write a grant application, coming from a completely different perspective. So there's just not a lot of overlap in vocabulary or primary concerns of each side. And of course, we can never forget that collaboration means getting different people together and all pulling in the same direction. It is hard to work with people. I don't care who you are, what you're doing. People are difficult. We are squishy and we're opinionated and we just are absolute rubbish at communicating at all. Even when we're all on the same team, we just can't communicate. And collaboration is mostly communication. So if you've got people coming from different contexts, that's just not going to happen, right? As a matter of fact, getting industry and academia in the same place, speaking the same language, understanding each other's contexts, collaborating is so difficult that I think it qualifies as a wicked problem. And no, I did not make that up. I didn't just come up with let's slap an adjective on there. Wicked, yeah, wicked. No, wicked problems are legitimately a thing. It's a category of thing. The concept originates in social planning. Mostly it hasn't strayed too far from the social planning sphere, but it is starting to kind of creep its tendrils out. It's a really helpful idea, though, and one we can apply to many different areas. In particular, those of us who work in more social arena, such as open source or collaboration, we're going to benefit from knowing what wicked problems are. Now, the definition from Wikipedia is on the screen, and I'm going to read it for the visually impaired. A wicked problem is a problem that is difficult or impossible to solve because of incomplete, contradictory, and changing requirements that are often difficult to recognize. That's pretty wicked. We all have seen wicked problems, whether we knew it or not. And once you know about them, you start seeing them all over the place. I know there's a word for that, and I can't remember what it is, but that phenomenon, when you learn about something and all of a sudden you see it everywhere, yeah, that's wicked problems for me. Some wicked problems you're pretty familiar with include what to do about the climate crisis, how to handle the COVID-19 epidemic, and how to help our unhoused neighbors. Anyone who looks at even one of these problems and says, oh, we should just do this, or assuming it's easy to resolve, oh, just give people homes, and that's all it's going to, well, yeah, that's going to get us pretty far, but there's a lot more to it than that, right? Anyone who says that, they either aren't paying attention or they are being willfully ignorant. Either of them don't foster collaboration, frankly. So wicked problems have, depending upon the researcher whom you're reading, they have multiple sets of criteria. What does it take to be a wicked problem? They all basically boil down to the fact that these problems are so complex that it is incredibly difficult to see any way forward, let alone agreeing on what done looks like. And that's a problem, because wicked problems have so many different perspectives and so many different stakeholders that they can't agree. They just can't. They're coming from different perspectives, different contexts, and because of that, there can never be a solution to a wicked problem. They just can't. That is one of the primary criteria for being called a wicked problem or not. Does it have a solution? No, wicked. So some people hear this and they're like, well, just why bother? I mean, if I can't get it through to the end, why should I even work on a wicked problem? Really, why should I do that? Why should I waste my time if I can't have a solution? Well, in fact, this is a good thing. Not having an end game means you can focus on the now. Means that you can start looking at what is the next step I should do and be more mindful of the direction you can go. Because nobody's going to look at a wicked problem like the climate crisis, nobody reasonable anyway, and say we shouldn't do anything about it, right? Just because you can't get to the end doesn't mean you shouldn't try. And this frees you up. You don't have to get to the end, yay! So that's good news. It's a lot easier to focus your attention on the next step when you're not looking for the end step. And that's good. So even though they are unsolvable, wicked problems do get attention, and that means rather than having the end game, you're having a constant series of next steps. Just little ones, here, there. You may not ever reach that perfect solution that does not exist, but you can do things to improve the situation right now. And then do it again. And then do it again. And each time you're doing it, you're helping someone else. And you're making the situation just slightly better in some way. And that's really powerful. And it's really empowering to know that you can make a difference even in small ways. They really do matter. Now, this is the point at which people who know me, who are aware of my reputation, have read my books, or read my bio, are going, oh, well, Vicky's going to say open source can solve the wicked problem of collaboration, right? Can it do this? Hell no. Are you kidding me? I just told you wicked problems do not have solutions. How is open source going to do a solution? There isn't one, right? You just can't. Collaboration is hard, and we are never going to get it right, because right does not exist. Only good enough for now. And let us not forget that open source itself kind of comes with its own baggage. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's not exactly known for being user-friendly. It's not the most straightforward things, and no matter what open source project you're looking at, it's got baggage. I mean, look at it. Just look at that. You've got this completely different language added to industry and academia, so that's a third language, and then you've got new methods of operating, completely different from how you're used to doing in academia, and let us not forget, it just utterly falls apart if people don't participate. So, how in the world could open source be a solution to wicked problems? Well, surprise, it actually can help. It won't be a solution, but it can be one of those next steps. It provides that common ground, that third space where industry and academia can meet. Adding the additional complexity of open source to an already complex situation just gives you more complexity, so who cares, right? But what it does is it gives you this place where you don't have to compromise and have academia do it industry's way, which is frankly the way industry would rather do it. Or you have industry do it academia's way, and industry would just go right over their heads. They would not understand. You don't have to choose if you meet in the middle at open source. And then you can use the same language, which is the language of open source. And yeah, you're going to have those domain-specific bits of jargon, like my friends in open robotics, they're all talking about servos and actuators and, visual things and stuff like that. That's okay, because it's the same language, domain-specific language, that they're talking about and they're using in industry. But now, they can also share the language of open source. Similarly, open source, despite the fact there are so many different ways to do it, open source still does have a fairly well-established shared operating method, right? How we do things here. So knowing that questions go in the issue tracker, or that meeting notes go in the repo, and that all conversations have to happen in the open. These may sound like little bitty things, but these are the little baby ducks that will peck you to death. If you get them out of the space, you've got a lot less friction and a lot more energy for the things that matter. So if someone has already set up this way of doing things, you can follow it. And it makes things so much easier to meet in the middle and go that way. And it also builds on things that you already know. We all know in this room here that y'all are using so much open source. And speaking to somebody who works in the corporate space most of the time, holy smokes, open source. It is everywhere. So you know these things already. This way you can both come together and share this space and build on the things you already know. So seeing as how there are no solutions to wicked problems, how can we build on this common ground of open source and take that next step to improving the situation of industry, academia, collaboration? Well, I don't know. Again, there's lots of different ways you could do it. Any individual next step could be one of many that are happening at once, because they all add up to better. I think one we should consider, and that I haven't been able to find yet, is create a new project And that new project is going to make it easier for industry members and academic researchers to find each other. So you don't have to go to industry events. They don't have to go to academic events. There's this new third space where everyone can get together. We've got the people in this room right now to get started on this and make a difference and help researchers and industry all get on the same page. Think of it kind of like a matchmaking service, sort of, kind of. I'm picturing something kind of like a new open source project or nonprofit. I do a lot of work in that space, so I'm actually favoring the nonprofit idea at the moment, but I go back and forth. But a new thing run by open principles with all of its output being open source, that just makes it easier for the right people to find each other at the right time. Operated under open governance, the project will act as a go-between. Industry folks, do I have a clicky? I do. Yay. I don't have a green laser. My cats do too. So industry folks can show up to the project and say, post things that they're looking for and set a bounty, for instance. Or more likely, they can say, I'm going to give you or put out a grant for this work, or sign on to an existing grant and have multiple people come together for a larger fund. And then academic people can show up and say, we're working on something like this and we think it could be useful for industry. Maybe it's only like 2 or 3 companies that might use it, but it's going to be super important to those 2 or 3 companies. And it's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper for the company to be funding you as a researcher to create that and publish it as open source code and open data under this new project than it is for them to create an entire research and development team. This is really good business. And this is really good research. It's not going to work for everyone. It's not going to work for every researcher for every project. Hell, it might not even work at all. But it could. The project itself isn't only being that spot, that matchmaker, but it's also doing all the marketing, which is going to be absolutely critical. It's doing all the admin, and it's managing the grants, which if you've ever had to do is just a royal pain in the ass. But someone's got to do it and move the money around. So that's good. So obviously this is, I've got 2 or 3 slides up here and poof, it's done, right? No, it's pretty involved. It wouldn't be easy to make happen. Maybe it shouldn't happen. I don't know. Let's talk about it. But it's going to be difficult. And usually, I have found the most difficult things are the ones that are most worth trying. We could start small. Just thinking within context of what we're doing here today, it could start as a small project under the UC OSPO network. Stephanie, I'm not looking to make work for you because I know you've got plenty already, but it would be a really great initiative. But just start small, just within UC and interested industry members. And then you work out the kinks, file off the rough edges, and then you expand it a little further to say your CSU friends or your private institutions, right, like Stanford. I'm sure they just make their own. But expand it a little further, and then get some more rough edges off, and then take it to that next step, and just keep iterating and making it bigger and better, and getting more of a groundswell. And it could make a difference. It could. Or maybe not. I don't know. It certainly won't solve the problem, because of course you can't. You can't solve a wicked problem. But maybe it can be one of the next steps that we can take and move us all forward together in some way to collaborate. So I am VM Brasseur. I am a corporate strategist and open source leader. We are all friends here, so you may call me Vicky. Please don't try to pronounce VM. I've heard all the bad puns. Don't think yours is original. I'm the author of these 2 books, Forge Your Future with Open Source, which teaches people all about the foundations of open source, what it is, and how to contribute to projects. And we're not just talking about the nuts and bolts, sort of, this is how you do a pull request. GitHub has great documentation on that. No, this is the human side of open source. And then the second book that was just out in print just last week, it's so exciting, which is Business Success with Open Source, which is how companies can be more successful by using, releasing, and contributing to free and open source software projects. If you're a startup, go to Heather. If you're everyone else, come to me. Because that's really where it makes most sense, I think, splitting the books up. And hers is fantastic for startups. They're good for everyone, frankly. I got that myself. So, let me see. Author of those two books. I am recently laid off. A week ago today. Happy anniversary to me. So I could put my knowledge and experience to work for you. Please, come find me. Now, where you can find me? Mastodon, because Twitter is dead to me. Social.bmbrasseur.com/@bmbrasseur. I do post probably more than I should admit. And then you can email me at ucopen@bmbrasseur.com. The books, fossbooks.com. Yeah, so thank you very much, UC Open, for having me. So, I have time for questions, but not comments disguised as questions.
Well, you tasked me to do something, so no.
I'm so sorry, Stephanie.
You want to do time?
Sure.
But no, yeah, does anybody else have questions aside for me? Start with, all right.
Wow, I was that clear.
Oh, over here.
Oh, we got one. Yay, thank you, Edwin.
Hi, I'm Edwin again, and yeah, do you have any experience, what are the main challenges of integrating academia and industry?
The main challenge is being the translation layer, frankly, because industry does not, you have to really speak to them in their terms, which is like ROI, frankly. You're going to give them $50,000 to do a thing. What benefit are you as a company going to get out of it? We can see what's in it for the researcher. I don't care about them. I care about me. I got to keep a roof over my head, right? And so being able to talk to the researcher and just get that big brain dump and then pick out the pieces that I know are going to appeal to the industry and then use them to craft a report and a request where I can ethically manipulate them into saying yes. That's usually the hardest bit, collecting information and communicating it.
So I have a question that's slightly related to that question. When you showed that slide with the icon of the industry and the research lab and working together, it reminded me of something I was involved in 20 years ago when I worked for a company called Alcatel-Lucent that had two branches, the R&D, which I was part of, but also Bell Labs with the researchers. And we tried to work together on something cool algorithm that Bell Labs developed. But when I brought in my fellow R&D engineers to look at the code that was developed by the Bell Labs researchers, they said, oh, it's a piece of crap. Like, we need to do it from scratch. So, and it's almost obvious that there's a clash of cultures where researchers care more about the perfect algorithms and the most efficient ones, and production engineers care about things that won't crash in production. So how do you kind of bring them to a common ground, or how you at least force them to collaborate on the same thing where they have like those different cultures?
So in this case, this is where open source is very, very helpful. Because, frankly, you are adding that third method of doing things in there. And you do have oversight, for instance, over pull requests. And so you can have your, it must be academically perfect and rigorous Bell Labs folks sending over pull requests that are 1,000 lines long. And then people are saying, no, that's not how we do things here. Here, let me help you to split this up, and let me tell you how and why. and then you can help me research it. And it's a lot of communication. It's just like anything else, frankly. It's just a lot of communication. And to be honest, using the exact same methods outside of the public sphere between industry and research, just not in the open. So doing it more in an inner source way between two parties, that also functions. But it all requires a lot of communication and patience and understanding. But that's all collaboration. But it doesn't mean you're not forcing anyone to do anything. You do that, and you're instantly going to get people digging in their heels as they start doing political things behind your back to undermine you. And you just don't want to get into that, because then you just don't get any sleep, and sleep is great. And we're doing that time. Okay.
So I love the idea of that matchmaking service that you talked about. Until that comes about, what are some of the most successful strategies that you've found for people finding each other to build these collaborations?
It depends upon your point of view. Are you coming from the industry side or the academic side? It's frankly, I have found it's easier coming from the academic side. Because you already know what you want, and that is somebody to help you get your stuff out there, be it funding or productization or what have you, right? So you go to industry events. You go where the people are. You know, you go to, if you're in geophysics, you go to the industry geophysics conferences. Don't just keep yourself at the individual, like, I have a paper to present sort of conferences, right? It is, however, more difficult to get grant funding to go to those. And that is a big challenge. From the industry side, what I've found is typically they don't even think about academia. It just doesn't cross their mind that, oh, I could throw $100,000 at this researcher and they will come up with this amazing stuff that we can then use after they patent it, but it doesn't matter because it's under Apache 2 and I can totally use it. Wow, awesome. They don't think about that. And so that takes more people talking about it in a public sphere like me, talking to industries and saying, hey, have you thought of? And just making it possible. So as you are at these industry events, just talking it up. Not necessarily in a selling yourself sort of way, but if you do that and it's successful, good on you, mate. But just talking about the possibility, because most people don't see it at all.
It's very true. Having worked at many large corporations over the years, I find that the only companies that pay attention to academia are the ones that have the advanced research labs and really have those close connections. How do we get corporations to pay more attention to universities and academia?
Feels like the same question.
Okay.
No, it's okay. Again, it's all about awareness. If we're not aware of something, we're not going to give it our attention. And sometimes if we are aware of something, we're not going to give it our attention because we don't think it's worth our attention. So it requires people talking a lot more about how researchers are helping businesses meet their bottom line. So as things like this are more successful, as Stephanie and the OSPO network across Cal, as you are working with these folks, get the word out. And I'm not just talking on the Cal blog. I'm talking, talk to the News Stack and talk to Forbes and talk to not Washington Post anymore. And just talk to lots of different groups and get the word out there and raise the awareness. And it's, okay, sorry, one word answer, marketing. All right.
I think this might be the last one.
Yes, it will, because I need to break down. I'm sorry, I'm running late.
It's more of a comment,
Oh, no, it is not. I'm sorry, we don't do comments here. You can have a comment when you're signing your books. Please go see him when he's signing his books.
Well, because as an industry, the way we expect the relationship to come through us, I work for Intel, so we have lots of relationship with lots of universities. So either come through that, or because this UC OSPO network is being built, I would recommend go through UC OSPO network to the corresponding industry OSPO network, right? Because pretty much anybody who's investing into open source, they have an OSPO. So make that OSPO to OSPO connection a lot more friendly, and they can help you navigate the org boundaries.
Okay, and I'm sorry we are out of time, but I will be here the rest of the day. Feel free to come by and say howdy.